It's Katie, and of course, that makes this episode 48 of the Circles and Squares PlayStation podcast on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Kate, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm doing really well. I've had a sleeper game I've been working on, and I stayed up till about 2 a.m. last night to beat it. So, all for the show,
It's the
right?
podcaster's life, man. I was doing the same thing last
Exactly.
night. I was playing. We're going to be talking about Persona 5 Strikers, as we mentioned as for part of the PS Plus lineup for the month, and I was playing that last night till 2 o'clock and trying to hammer out the first little part to chat about. But yeah, it's a good weekend, as people will notice on the video show. I've got my Packers jersey on today. Notice it's Clay Matthews, not that whack guy Aaron Rodgers, who's apparently against vaccinations.
Yeah.
Get your vaccine, everyone. Don't listen to Aaron Rodgers. But let's hope they win today. You know what? It's going to be stressful. They're playing San Francisco, a team that's beaten them a few times in some important games. So cross your fingers, folks. I'm kind of stressed out and looking forward to watching that after this.
Well, good luck, Packer boys. That's all I
Nice.
got to say.
My favorite thing about NFL football for listeners is that Kate doesn't follow it at all. I'm a reasonably big fan, but my favorite thing is that sometimes I send her pictures of the funniest celebrations. There's some
Oh
really
my
creative
God.
and
Some of them are so funny. There was one and they were like, I don't know, they dance around and they do the wildest shit. Like one of those guys was playing like tic-tac-toe on someone else's back or something for
yeah,
like
it's
a victory
fantastic.
pose.
It's
Yeah.
like the real highlights are not what happens in the game; it's what happens when
No.
they score, basically.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah,
It's how BM can your taunt be? Like it's amazing.
exactly. Anyway, go Pack Go, and yeah, hopefully there's some Packers fans listening out there because we need. Well, I mean, there's tons of us. Who cares?
Yeah,
Kate,
there's
we got.
dozens of you.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many.
Dozens of us.
Unlike my hockey team, I cheer for one of the most popular football teams, so it balances out. Anyway, this is not a sports podcast, conversely to what you might think after this first minute of the show. It's in fact a video game podcast, and we have video games to talk about. Before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone that you are now able to rate the show on Spotify, so please do so if you haven't already, if you're one of our lovely Spotify listeners. We appreciate the 5-star reviews, obviously, but it just helps us grow the show, get in more places, and obviously the same for YouTube and wherever else you're listening as well. We appreciate all the support. But let's get into the show. So for the first part, as we usually do on our regular show here, we'll talk about the games we have been playing. And then for the second half of the show, we have a brand new, well, it's an offshoot of a regular segment. We usually do some quizzes and stuff for each other, but this time I have a unique twist on that to look forward to later. So I'm excited for that later in the show. And then, of course, we will be answering a listener mail question to close it out, as we like to do as well. So a reminder at the top of the show that if you want your listener mail read out on the show, if you have a question or a comment or a story about a game that we've talked about and you want us to read it and make some comments, you can send that to circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com. Or you can get in touch with us on Twitter at C&S Pod, where we have all our links laid out, and you can connect with us however you feel is best. Kate, let's get into our first game of the day, though, which is Persona 5 Strikers, a game that was on PS Plus for this month. And man, you know what? We were pretty excited to get another bit of Persona put into our lives. I think we agreed it was a game like, oh, it's Dynasty Warriors. That's not really either of our thing, but considering it's like a full price game and we're such big fans of Persona 5, obviously this was going to be what we checked out. And so I guess we should start off just by saying how much we've played. For me, I've played about 6 or 7 hours now, and I've beaten sort of the first area of the game. And I've got some mixed feelings on it, so I'm interested to see what you have. And yeah, where are you at in the game? How have you enjoyed it so far?
Yeah. I'm still kind of in the process of moving and I've had a bit of a crazy week. So I didn't get to play quite as much as I hoped I would. So I played about maybe 3 hours, maybe three and a half, four, if I'm being generous. So I definitely didn't get as much time with the game. But I feel like I at least got a decent feel for how the style works mixed with Dynasty Warriors. And I'm kind of in that boat too where I think this is genuinely like a good take on that genre. And they pulled a lot of Persona into the Dynasty formula, and I think it's actually kind of neat how they managed to merge the two. But that being said, that I think this has reaffirmed for me that the Dynasty style games are just not my scene.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, even with the Persona skin, I didn't know it was a direct sequel to 5, and it kind of picks up 2 months after 5 ends. And so it's just littered with all the feels from 5 and all the Easter eggs. Like the gang gets back together. Ryuji says, "For real?"
Yeah, yeah.
12 times in the first half hour, and like, it hit me in that way. And so I wish I was excited to play more, but I don't know if I'll go back to it necessarily.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like it's exactly what you said. It's like, but the fact that it is a direct sequel to Persona 5 and um continues that right where that story left off. Like for me, that Persona 5, people know it's not a secret, it's my favorite game. And so like having more added to that story is like awesome. Like I can't wait to play through and see the story. There's no question in my mind that I will be completing this game just to, spend more time with those characters and see where their story goes. But I agree with you completely. Like the Dynasty Warriors kind of setup of it, the gameplay just isn't really what I'm looking for. I've never really been a huge Dynasty Warriors person. I've not that I have a lot of experience with it either, but this has not done anything to get me into more of those style of games, really. Um,
Mhm.
and maybe we should explain a little bit of what that's about, just because Dynasty Warriors isn't something we've talked about. It's basically like they're big beat 'em up games where the battles are very grand in scope. So instead of having like Kratos in God of War where you're fighting a few enemies at once, in Dynasty Warriors it's more like you've got a bunch of fodder enemies. Like there could be hundreds on the screen at one time, and you're kind of
Mhm.
just comboing, and it feels a bit button mashy. I know there's combos you can actually do and inputs you can have, but for large part I feel like it is quite button mashy, and you're more or less just clearing out areas and moving through the map
Yeah.
like that.
That's what I feel like. There's a lot of systems in there, and I was surprised by, like, the amount in there and the depth, and almost it felt, like, really complicated to learn everything. And I think, like, there are harder difficulties you can select, so I think maybe if you play on those, it might be more necessary to, like, really intuitively learn those systems. But it felt like at least for the first part of the game, and maybe it ramps up later, but it feels like for the vast majority of, like, the early game, you're just kind of fighting hordes and, like, button mashing is an option. And so for me, that kinda takes away some of the, like, excitement of doing the more complicated stuff because it's like, well, I could just mash, like, triangle and that also works.
Yeah.
And so that's kinda rough, but with that being said, you can swap to different characters and different characters have certain like, slightly, like, altered play styles, which is kinda nice, and you have access to the full, like, Phantom Thieves almost from the get-go. So, like, I ended up playing a lot of Haru, and she's sort of, like, can
I like
aim
Haru
her
too.
gun and, like, shoots, like, a big cannon, basically, and so that was actually what I had the most fun with was being, like, Haru and, like, sort of aiming the gun.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I
but
agree with that too.
otherwise, it is pretty mashy otherwise, or at least it feels like that's a viable strategy sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
Um
I think for me, I've noticed it comes down a lot to like hitting the enemy weaknesses, similar to in the game. Like you always want to be using the all out attack. So as long as you have like the right element, I feel like it's use the element and then just button mash as much as you can to damage them until they get up, or and then you use the element again, sort of to knock them down. And it, yeah, what you said, I think is an interesting point about having the whole cast open from the start, because for me, it's like, on one hand, that's really cool story wise, because one of my criticisms of Persona 5 is that certain characters like Haru, you mentioned her, you get her
Mhm,
so late in the game that you don't really get to develop that same relationship and know her as well as like Ryuji and Ann and Morgana and like these characters that are
mhm.
there with you from the start. So I like the fact that you get everyone, like the whole crew's together from the beginning, so you can actually spend the full game with them. But then in terms of learning the battle system, I feel like it is complicated, and then you're learning every character has a little bit of variation in what they can do. Like, certain characters have different. I think like Fox has a counter you can do if you time his special
He
move at the right time.
does have a counter, and I thought I'd be super excited for that, but I don't know, I guess I just
Yeah,
didn't really play, like, with the timing well enough, but I definitely played as Fox and Haru were my OG Persona team was those 2,
yeah,
me and Mona, and so
yeah.
that's exactly who I took in the first pal, so, like, it's the OG, like, A squad coming back, let's go.
Yeah, yeah. And what I like about it too is you can do the same thing. You can swap your characters out at the checkpoints. There's a lot of different checkpoints you get to in the game as well. So you can constantly kind of switch every time you get there. So if one character's running low on MP or HP, you can just swap them out and continue on. Although the game also makes it really easy to like come and go out of the palaces. I guess they're jails in this game, but similar
Yes.
idea. You like enter these areas from the main area. They're the main like town you live in, and you can come and go like really freely, and entering and exiting just restores all your health, which I think it works well for this, because you kind of want to just heal up quickly and then get right back into the action to continue
Mhm.
progressing, right? And but at the same time, I think again, like we're comparing and contrasting the story versus the gameplay a lot in this, and I feel like as much as I'm interested in the extension of the Persona 5 story, I think where this game really doesn't quite hit that same high is like the writing is still good quality, but it just feels a lot quicker. Like you don't get to
Yeah.
spend days with the characters and plan out like, oh, who am I going to hang out with tomorrow in my free time? Like it's always like everyone's a group. You don't have individual bonds and relationships with them. Like it's just your group itself is increasing its bond, but I guess you're already like very good friends with them at this point. And so it kind of takes away from that persona calendar aspect, which is so fun to manage during the
Hmm.
game. And instead, it's very more compact. Like you just have, your main hub area you're at, you go to the store, and then you're right back into the dungeon, basically.
Yeah, I agree, and I found too as I was playing, especially, and it might just be a early game thing because they've got a lot of like exposition they need to give you to like get you into what's happening, and then also for new players who haven't played five, which I don't think I'd recommend, but I guess like if you're not interested in the gameplay of five, that's someone might have the flip experience. So if you're not
Hmm.
in 5, you have to kind of get caught up to speed a little bit, so early on, I found there was, like, just tons of dialogue section, and I know Persona 5 is known for that. It
Yeah.
has a lot of cutscenes, a lot of dialogue, but it's typically broken up with you making those, like, management sim style decisions. So, like, okay, you have to talk to everybody and there's walls of text to read, but it's broken up by going to Big Bang Burger and doing the Big Bang Burger challenge, which as everyone knows is one of the most exciting things you can do in Persona. But in this, there is no break, so it was actually funny the first night I played, I was playing some in the evening, I was like, "Okay, I'm getting pretty tired. I'm gonna go get ready for bed, and I'll come back and, like, finish up this dialogue section, and then I'll go to bed, and I'll play some more in the morning." And so I did that, and I must have played for at least another half hour, and I was like, "I'm nowhere even close to feeling like I'm done getting through this dialogue section," because it
Hmm.
just kept going, whereas I think in 5, it was, like, paced a little bit differently because it
Yeah.
wasn't just the, like, dungeon or dialogue, it was dungeon, dialogue, and, like, choices and, like, character, like, RP sections, and so
Yeah.
having that 3rd thing, I think, helped the pacing even though it could be a little long-winded at times for sure, but missing out on one of those aspects just made this like, "Oh my god," like, you gotta be, like, ready for walls of text, which is really kind of a strange contrast with, like, the really hectic, like, bombastic, like, spectacle style combat, and then it's like, "Okay, now slow-paced talking." And
Yeah.
so I that's kind of a weird juxtaposition. I think maybe a lot of people I don't know if that's typically how Dynasty goes or if that's the, like, persona coming into it, but
Yeah.
you're
I
either in
don't.
a you're either in a mode for, like, action, action, action 100% or, like, chill out for 2 hours.
Yeah, I noticed the same thing. Like, especially at the start too. And it's very exposition heavy, like catching you up on a lot of the
Mhm.
systems. Like, they go over the difference between a palace from the original game and like what a
Yeah.
jail is in this game. They go over those details like incessantly, almost like. And I wonder, like, kind of too, who the target for this game is in a way, because I wouldn't imagine that a lot of people would come to this as their first Persona game, right? Like I would imagine most people would have the experience like, oh, I really like Persona 5, let me expand into this like spin-off kind of game. I don't know if
Yeah,
there's a
and
lot of people coming from like the Dynasty Warriors that haven't played Persona 5.
the problem is too is that it doesn't work as well in reverse. Like there are so
No.
many spoilers for Persona
Well, it's a
5
sequel though, right?
immediately
Like,
in this
yeah.
exactly. And like I think they should be there. Like they have to be there. But like there's some characters you meet like very early in this game, and it's like, oh, if you haven't played 5, like that is a big twist that happens.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what a shame to have that spoiled. So like obviously playing 5 is not a prerequisite for this, but like I feel like it's harder to go backwards
I feel
than
like it kind of is a
sometimes sequels
prerequisite
are.
in a lot of ways. Like if you care at all about the story of Persona, I feel like you pretty much just couldn't play this first. Like Persona being
Yeah.
such a story heavy game, but at the same time, like I'm sure there are people who are fans of the Dynasty Warriors genre that tried this out and then got into Persona as well. Like there must be the other way. How do you feel
Mhm.
about the new characters they've introduced? Sophie and what's the other guy, Zenkichi, right? Like the long haired guy.
Yeah, so I don't know too much about the detective yet. I've definitely met him, and it cracked me up that he's like hanging out at LeBlanc because he was very much like, "Oh, this is a catchy, got it."
Yeah.
So I was kind of interested to see, and I think what I'm gonna do is instead of committing the time to play this game, I might just watch like cutscenes and kind of like
Hmm.
see where the story goes and kind of do it that way because I am interested to see like where he differs from Akechi and like kind of where the story goes.
Hmm.
So far I initially quite like him. Sophie, I am unsure on. I think she's cute. I love her shopping. I think that's
The shop
hilarious.
screen is amazing.
The
The
shop
menu in
screen
the
is
shop screen,
amazing.
oh my god, that Persona menu
Expedited
magic.
expedited delivery,
Yeah.
like, as much as I kinda hate missing out on the shops from 5, like, you know, the
Yeah, UI
airsoft
and all
shop
those
is
guys.
closed and, like, the clinic is closed, and I was kind of, you know, like, looking forward to seeing those characters again, so that was a disappointment, but I do think the shopping is hilarious, and I love where it shows you where it's, like, all coming from because 'cause you're, like, basically, like, Amazon ordering everything, but it's
Hmm.
like, instant, and it shows you, like, there's, like, little flavor text as to where each thing is, like, the vendor, and so that's really cute.
Yeah, and I love the
Um
dialogue box on the side too. Like you'll be going to sell
Mhm.
all the junk you picked up in the jail, and the Sophie will just be sitting on the side, and she'll be like, "Oh, don't need that one. Hey, okay, sell it over here. Like, be careful. Like
Mhm.
the prices are good here." Just random things like that would be like muttered behind her breath almost while you're shopping. It's like it's a really cool detail and makes you feel like
Yeah.
it's just something unique to the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a little concerned about her when I first met her because, typically, I'm not a huge fan of that trope of, like, "Oh, I don't know anything, and I'm, like, a vulnerable young human girl, and I need you to teach me things," and it kind of, like, verges on a little bit of, like, we could very easily take advantage of this girl," and sometimes,
Hmm.
like, you know, especially in anime stuff, like, that is a trope that gets
Well,
kind of
it's a downfall of Persona,
sexualized a
right?
lot.
Persona does have a lot of those weird Japanese kind of
Yeah,
sexualizations. Like
but
they're going on
I
a camping trip and it's like, oh, are the boys gonna sleep with the girls? That type of thing. Like,
yeah.
you know.
Exactly, it can be a little, like, immature in that way, but, so far, at least from what I played, they didn't really take it down that route, and so I kind of worried for nothing and or at least from what I played, and so I ended up liking Sophie more than I thought I would, and also when she is in her, like, metaverse form, she kinda
Hmm.
looks like Baymax.
She does, yeah.
I think that gave her a really big buff in my mind that I think of her as I think of Baymax, and she's like, "I'm here to be humanity's companion." It's like, "I cannot go away until you say you're satisfied with your care."
Hmm.
So, I think genuinely I like her, and she uses yo-yos, which is kind of a
It's a
cool
cool weapon, yeah. It's fun
cool
just to have a new Phantom Thief kind of. I guess she's not officially a Phantom Thief, but she's kind of with your party for the game and kind of rounds it
Mhm.
out, which is nice. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm gonna continue on. I don't have a lot more to say about it. Like I'm obviously looking forward to playing more and getting deeper into the story. I feel like this might be the kind of game where I slam it down to easy and just like go
Yeah.
through for the story because I really just don't have any interest. If I'm gonna be button mashing anyway, and like the battles will just be shorter and easier to win, like I'm there for the story for this for sure. But it's
Mhm.
definitely made me excited to play like more of the spin-offs. Like I definitely want to check out the Persona 5 dancing game as well.
Yeah,
Just
those dancing games I genuinely wanna play, and, like, well, we haven't touched on it yet, but the music in this game is obviously amazing, like, there's some new stuff, "You Are Stronger" has gotta be one of my new favorite Persona songs. It's kind of
yeah.
like feels like one of the main themes for this one, and it's amazing, and then early on, you get, like, a Rivers in the Desert scrambled version, and
Yes,
it's kind of a
yes.
more, like, rock version of the song, and it is so good.
Yeah.
There were times where, like, it would start out in a fight and, like, that Rivers in the Desert would come on, and then one of them would be giving you, like, a tutorial tooltip on, like, the 17th different, like, combat system that you can do, and I just sort of, like, stayed in that dialogue box and didn't click through because I just wanted to jam along to it, and
Mhm.
I'd be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, maybe I have a text message I can respond to or, like, something I can do as an excuse to not progress past this song too quickly."
Yeah, yeah, and I'm so with you too. And like I can confirm, as I'm sure you expect, like when you go into the final infiltration of the palace. I did beat the first jail last night. I wanted to make
Mhm.
sure I got past that part just so I could
Yeah.
see what happens afterwards. But I got there and it definitely plays the same infiltration music as the regular game as well.
Nice.
Like the hypest thing in the world
Yeah.
when that music comes on and you're going through the palace for the final time, and it's like hell yeah, man.
Mhm.
This music is just unbeatable. We
Oh,
talked about
so
Streets
good.
of Rage 4, the soundtrack, a few episodes ago, and like how good that was. And there's a lot of games that have good music, but man, Persona is the king of soundtracks.
It's something else. I'm so trying to find if anybody knows any bands that are like Persona 5 soundtrack, please tell me, like, I've been trying so hard to find bands that are similar, and I found some that are good, but there's nothing quite like Persona.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know. That's a good question for our listener mail, or a good thing to write in for
Mhm.
us, that's for sure.
Yes, please tell us. I'm desperate.
Any final thoughts on Persona Strikers, Kate?
I do have some more thoughts on Persona Strikers, but I think it bleeds really well into another game I've been playing. They do a really good comparison, and I think it just really highlights my personal preference when it comes to like action focused
Sure.
games.
Yeah, well, let's move along to that then, because I don't have a lot more to say. I will definitely be reporting back on updates for this because I'm going to go through the whole thing. So look forward to that. But yeah, let's get into your next game, Kate.
Okay, so I at about 2:15 a.m. This morning beat Fury, which is a game I bought on Steam like 6 years ago on Steam sale. Maybe not, maybe that's an exaggeration because it came out in 2016, but I bought it years ago on a cheap Steam sale and finally got around to playing it, and it took me like 6 hours to beat it. So, like,
Yeah, it's
I'm
short.
absolutely kicking myself how I haven't played it. But this game is intense. It is wild. You just need to see it to kind of get a sense of what it is, but it's got this really like sort of like cyberpunky or like samurai fusion kind of aesthetic going on. And it's essentially a series of boss fights. That's all the gameplay is in this game. You fight a few bosses in a row with some like story sequences in between, and then you're done the game.
Similar to like Titan Souls, then. Have you do you play that at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Titan Souls, but there's not even like an overworld you really walk around in. It just kind of takes you like from cutscene like, well, not so much cutscene, but like walking with dialogue to boss fight, to walking with dialogue, boss fight, repeat until you're done. But this game is so bizarre and unique. It reminds me of like a Super Giant style game where they just sort of like had some weird passion vision and made it work, and it's somehow perfect. So it's a combination of a bullet hell
You're on that
and
bullet hell train,
I
as
am
we
on a
say.
bullet hell train, as they say. It's a bullet hell, and it's also like a parry reaction based melee combat game. And the vast majority of boss fights, you kind of flip between phases where you're doing like bullet hell shooting, and it's like a top down arena. And of course, it's like got this great like disco or not disco, like electronic kind of music soundtrack that's going along. And the music in this game is amazing, just as a side note. And when you pause the game, it shows you the artist that's currently playing, which I think is a really nice detail. And so
More
the
games should do
music's
that.
more games should do that. Well, I think because this game doesn't have like an original soundtrack, it's just music taken from other artists. And it fits really well, but I think it's nice that they wanted to credit them like that. So at any time you can tell who's playing. Um, and so you're doing these like intense bullet hell sections to this like electronic music, and of course it's got like the bright neon flashing colors, and it's just got that really bold kind of aesthetic. And then the boss will get like knocked down, and then you'll go into like a melee like samurai style like sort of phase. And it's really simple in what you actually have in terms of controls, but it makes use of them in such creative ways. So when you're in kind of the top down bullet hell sections, you can move, you can dodge, and you have a really nice dodge, by the way. So points on that. And then you can shoot and you can parry, and those are all the four things you do. There's no like intense combos that you have to learn. There's no like six different types of guns that you have at your disposal. It's just really simple. And then when you go into the melee, again, you have parry, dodge, and
Wash, rinse,
um
spin.
wash, rinse. Yeah, exactly, do your laundry. It's parry, dodge, move. That's basically all you do. But the complexity comes in terms of how you deliver on that move set and how you utilize it. It is so strict timing based because bullet hells get intensely complicated, right? Like there is so much visual information being thrown at you. Like picture something like Cuphead or Returnal or like, Enter the Gungeon or something. Like it's one of those games that when you first start playing, it's very overwhelming because it's like, how can I keep track of all these things on
Yeah.
the screen at once? Like there's like 100 bullets coming at
You
me.
almost need to
But
get into that like meditative stance where you're like
yes.
watching the screen, but you're not staring at any one thing because you're so busy
Mhm.
keeping track of 100 different things on it, right?
Exactly. So it'll kind of transition from something like that while you're also shooting the boss and kind of like attacking back when there's opportunities. And then it goes into like the melee, which is so awesome because it's a very reactionary game, which is definitely my style when it goes to those sections. And so you can't just attack the boss, they'll dodge you or they'll like counter you back. So you kind of have to wait and either like get a good counter on them or dodge a couple attacks and then it's your turn. And that is exactly my favorite kind of action. So it's just like somehow a blend made in heaven of like, oh, Katie's on a bullet hell. Okay, we'll just throw bullet hell into this action game and it's perfect.
It's a cool
And they
combination.
it is a really cool combination. It's really unique and unusual, but it fits together weirdly cohesively. And some bosses tend a little bit more towards the bullet hell style, and some tend to be a little bit more melee focused, and some are, like a combination of both. Um, and then what I really like about it too is there's a lot of like experimentation that you do, and a lot of like risk reward. So sometimes, like if you parry a string of attacks, that might be a safe thing to do. But after you've done it a few times, you realize, like, you can actually sneak a hit in. So you're like, parry, parry, hit, parry, parry. But, like, you kinda have to play around with the boss and figure out what kind of openings are available to you because they're different every time. Each boss feels very unique and sort of changes up your approach, which I really appreciate. Like, I won't wanna spoil too much, but, like, one of my favorites is, like, a one of the later bosses is like she's got a big sniper rifle, and so she kind of like spends a lot of the fight running away from you, and you have to go find her based off of where she's shooting at you from. And then when you do find her, she like has invisibility, so she'll kind of go
Mhm.
invisible and like shoot you, and she'll kind of like pop out of nowhere, and you have to do like really quick reactions. Um,
It's almost more of
and
a
then
puzzle rather than like the
yeah,
bullet
it's
hell
kind
type
of got
stuff
a
with
lot of
her.
like
Then yeah.
kind of got a lot of puzzle elements to it. And like there's another boss that does like cloning himself. And so you have to kind of like shoot and figure out which one's the real one. And there's one boss, my favorite boss, even though I love the bullet hell, my favorite one is a melee only boss. He's right at the end, he's tough as nails. But it really felt like I'm playing Sekiro. Like no game has ever made me feel anything like Sekiro. And so it's like, I wonder if FromSoft played Fury because it there's kind of a one-to-one there.
Yeah.
Um, but it's cool. I just really like risk reward. I like very deliberate combat. I feel like in this game, it does that a lot. So it's got a unique momentum system that I think really carries the game because boss fights can be um they're obviously intended to be challenging and they're also quite long, each of these fights. And so it has this mechanic where, you have your health bar, the boss is theirs, and it shows you how many phases the boss have. So typically they'll have like 5 or 6. Like they're quite long fights. But you also have a little bar that's kind of like your phase bar, and you get 3 of them, I believe. You might start with 2 and then move up to 3, but you definitely have 3 by the end of the game. And when you get defeated, you lose one of those phases. Oh, you can think of it like a
Mhm.
life system, I suppose, but you lose one of those, and then when you take the boss to the next phase, you gain one back.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, it's really momentum focused, and even if you struggle at a phase at first, you have a chance to kind of, like, recover some ground, which is nice because it kind of eliminates that, phase 3 is really hard for me, or, like, I don't phase 4 introduced something I've never had to deal with before and I had to learn it. And so it gives you that chance to like mess up and then gain your momentum back and keep
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
as opposed to like, okay, like I got through the first 3 phases and I have to restart from the beginning. So if you lose all of your phases and die, you do go back to the beginning. But I like that it kind of gives you that like wiggle room to sort of experiment and figure out like what the
Yeah.
best way to tackle each phase is because they get progressively harder and they keep introducing like slightly new mechanics that you have to learn what to do with.
I think
And
that's a
I
great system.
mhm.
Just I was gonna say just because like, you know, a lot of games when they have very challenging bosses, it can become frustrating when you're halfway through and you're like, oh, like goddamn, I'm almost nearly dead. I may as well just click restart. But it sounds
Yeah.
like with this game, you can like, oh, okay, if I just like do really well in this next phase, I'll get some health back, and you maybe could play it like a little bit more organically instead of like constantly hitting reset.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it kind of gives you like in theory, if you die once every phase, you beat the final at full, right? Like and so it gives you that wiggle room and it also feels like a really nice like pacing to the fight because it's so back and forth and like when you're on your last health and you kill the boss and everything just regens back to full. It feels incredible. It's like a big momentum shift for the fight. And I like that back and forth kind of feeling. And another thing that goes along with that really well is the parry in this game is oftentimes there are certain situations where parry is your only option because it will ramp up a little bit in difficulty, or a boss will put you in a certain spot that makes dodging not your best option. But typically, you can dodge all of the attacks, and that's lower risk, lower reward. But you can parry, which is difficult. But if you do that, you regain some health back as well. So you really are kind of motivated to sort of carve out a play style and to kind of like push yourself to really learn the boss timings. But
Hmm.
there's also like, oh, fuck, I just got to dodge. So I think it's really elegant how the game works. And I want to tie that back to Strikers because it really, playing these two games in combination really kind of solidified in my mind that it's not slow-paced combat I like. It's very deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
And in something like Fury, like, you have to do your timings perfectly. That is how you win. There's certain things that, like, if you don't dodge it this time, you don't dodge the attack, or same with the parries, and it's all about, like, these very precise, um, controls, and I like that, and if I get hit, I know, like, "Oh, I dodged slightly too early or slightly too late, or I needed to go at a slightly different angle." And I feel like I can keep making micro adjustments to be better at the game. And something like Strikers, it's not that it's, like, too easy or that it's too,
It's
like,
messy. It's messy.
it's not deliberate is the word I would use. Like, in
Mm.
Strikers, there's a lot of systems that are really interesting, like, especially when you get into using the personas and, like, there's different combos you could use, and,
Switching
there's
characters.
yeah, exactly. There's, like, switch characters, and then it gives them a bonus to use some, like, you get the baton pass bonus, then you use this, then you swap back, and, like, it's strategic in that way, but I don't feel like I have to, like, be deliberate about my timing. I don't like, you press X and it just hits everybody, and
Yeah.
you can just, like, combo out of that, and it's so, like, it just feels, yeah, maybe messy is a good word, but I think it's just not my kind of style of, like, small. I like simple controls that have precise and complicated application. I don't like complicated controls or I have a million options and a million different moves to use, and I need to decide which is the best. I
Yeah.
just want
Yeah.
simple, and then the execution is more the play. And so it was a neat way, and I think that's what puts me off of those Dynasty Warriors games, but
Hmm.
draws
Hmm.
me so much to something like Fury.
Yeah, there's definitely a continuum there, right? There's like
Mhm.
that type of thing, like Strikers over here, and then there's the like precision combat that you really like over on the other side, and you're definitely like a lot more skewed to like
Yes.
this side
Oh,
of the spectrum for sure.
I'm,
You're
like,
like very
hanging off
far over
the
there.
edge of it.
It's interesting. I'm trying to place
Yeah.
myself because to me, like Fury sounds like I actually would be interested in it, but I wouldn't say it's like that type of thing draws me because that sounds very from in a lot of ways too, and that doesn't always draw me.
Yeah.
But I also like I think I do prefer that to like what Dynasty Warriors is presenting. I think I'm somewhere like in the middle of the sweet spot, but I'll have to unpack that a little bit more because that makes
Yeah.
yeah, this is a
I
good
I think
conversation.
so. It's definitely a spectrum. But what's funny about that is it turns out that was my experience with Fury. And I will say too, there is an interesting story going on. It's very vague. You get a lot of, like, you're a prisoner escaping from this facility that you're locked in, and basically all the bosses are other prisoners that you have to kill on your way out, and then
Mm,
eventually the jailer. And then there's a secret final boss that just flips the whole game and story on its head and takes it in a really bizarre direction. But it's kind of neat going back to it afterwards and, like, oh, hang on, all that dialogue, like, totally has a different meaning now. It's like when you first play God of War and you
mm-hmm.
fight the stranger and
Yeah,
you make one assumption and then you learn some information later in the game and it completely changes the context of everything people have been saying to you. So it does that, and it gives you this, like, insane final, like, Star Fox 64-esque boss that's like only a bullet
I
hell.
wasn't expecting that comparison.
Oh my god, it is like yeah, it's absolutely Star Fox is what it felt like. But it is like a bullet hell, just the final secret boss, and that like I must have played it for like 2 hours last night to beat this boss.
Wow.
And I realized that I only played with a portion of the controls. And so the final boss took me like 11 it was timed. It took 11 minutes to go through all of the phases in the fight because I thought that I only had so many attacks I could do. And so half of the final boss was like, this is the dodge section until I'm allowed to do a DPS phase. I'm like, okay, now it's DPS phase, attack, attack, attack. Okay, back to dodging. And that was basically like 50-50 on the fight. And then I watched someone on YouTube do it this morning. I'm like, oh, they're shooting a big laser. Oh, they're doing it in the place that I
Oh
didn't know
my
you could
God.
attack. And so so I figured out that I was actually playing Fury kind of wrong. And you have like 3 attacks, not just 1 attack.
When you found that out, would you
So
say you were furious?
you know what? It was just really funny more than anything. I had such a fun time, and I made the boss way harder than it needed to be. But I got so much satisfaction after finally winning after the gauntlet I put myself through. So
Sounds like
that was my
a
Fury experience. But
sounds like a journey. I
I
like that.
recommend playing Fury and looking at the controls is what I would advise to anybody.
Yeah. Make sure you play it right. But that's cool. It sounds like a good experience, and it's interesting how it contrasts so heavily with
Yeah.
strikers, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
How would you say it compares just quickly to like the control of something like Death's Door, like with the parrying and all that stuff in that game?
It's very different. So I'd say Death's Door and like even a lot of even other FromSoft games, not Sekiro, but like Bloodborne and like Dark Souls and Death's Door, they have really good action mechanics. Um, but I'd say they're action games first. This one feels more like Sekiro in the sense of like it's a one-on-one duel at all
Mm,
times. And it's not so much in terms of like where you go in and out and get your hits. It's very much just like, okay, parry, parry, now it's my attack, or dodge, dodge, now it's my attack. It becomes more of like a rhythm game
mm.
in that sense. So
Like yeah,
I'd
okay.
say Sekiro is the one game I would weirdly compare it to for the melee. And then for bullet hell, it's very much just a competent bullet hell.
Yeah. Cool.
So
And it tied
yeah,
together with
it's
a beautiful cyberpunk package. Those blues and
exactly.
those pinks. Everyone
Yeah,
likes those colors these days.
Carpenter Brutes on the soundtrack, which is actually like a band I listen to, and so I was like really excited, and the music is just it's cool.
Well, speaking of music, Kate, I think it's time to move into the second part of today's show, which is the quiz. Although this is a different quiz this time, I've come up with a new idea, which actually I didn't come up with at all. It's completely stolen off of several other podcasts and different shows, but you know what? It's our
Appreciate
version, and
it.
I, to make it unique, have officially named this. This is a new game show. It's a game show within a podcast, and the show is called Good Listening. And I am the
Well,
host of
I
this
love
game
it.
show. My name is James, and I'm here right now to run you through the rules of good listening. The first ever episode, and welcome my contestant Kate to the show.
It's an
Kate,
honor.
the way this show works is I'm going to play 5 songs from different video games that you have played. I know
Okay.
you've played them all. Some of them might be recent, some of them might be something you've played in your past, but I know you will recognize these songs. And the way that
Okay.
it's going to work is we're going to play these songs. They're about, 40 seconds to a minute long.
40 minutes. All
Not
right,
40, yeah.
strap in, guys.
Strap in, everybody.
Strap in.
Yeah, and then you're going to tell me you got an opportunity to earn 10 points. You can earn
Okay.
1 point for telling me what game the song is from,
Okay.
and a second point for telling me either the name of the song or like when you would hear it in the game, depending on like the
Okay.
context of what that
Can
game
I
is.
wait 1 point for both of those? Can I not get a point if I get? Can I not get 2 points if I get both?
No, I didn't think
Okay.
about that. It's just it depends on the context of the game, right?
Okay, I see. I
You'll
see.
see what I mean when you play.
Okay.
But
Sure.
I was hoping to see how you did. I don't know if this is going to be too easy or too hard. It is the first time, so we'll see how good your
Right.
memory is. For you listeners playing along, of course, let us know how you do in the comments below. You'll be able to hear the music as well. So again, send it to circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com and see if you can beat Kate at some games that
Okay.
she's definitely played. So
No,
without,
I listen to a lot of video game music
yeah,
in my Spotify playlist, so
good.
I'm hoping to do well on this.
Well, let's find out with song number 1, and we will play it right now.
Oh god. This is intense. It's so familiar. Oh my god. Ugh. Oh my god. Okay, that hurts.
All right.
I feel like this song is in Smash. And, but that doesn't help. Like
I,
there's so many Smash
I
songs.
cannot. Well, I can tell you if it's in Smash if you want to know. That doesn't really help because I can tell you the game is not Smash Bros.
Yeah, I don't think it's a Smash original, but I feel like it feels like Final Fantasy-esque to me, but I haven't played tons of Final Fantasy, and you did promise.
Yeah, you've definitely played these games.
I'm gonna kick myself because like I am so familiar with the song and I'm having so much trouble placing it. Um
Man, if
it's
not, you
like a
just take a
boss
random guess.
fight. I mean, this is for sure a boss fight, right? Like this isn't oh, it might be Hollow Knight. It might be a Hollow Knight song actually.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna think it's a Hollow Knight song.
Okay.
It's definitely a boss fight. It's not the it might be it's not the Mantis Lords, I don't think. Although it is elegant in a way that they would.
I love
Uh,
listening to you unpack this.
it's not Hornet. I know for sure it's not Hornet's theme.
Okay. Well,
This
uh,
hurts. It's not the city. It's not in the City of Tears.
I'm putting a time limit. You have 10
Not
more
gloomy enough.
seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna say it's the Mantis Lords. I know I'm wrong,
The
but it's
Mantis Lords. Okay.
Hollow Knight Mantis Lords.
I will, in fact, tell you the answer now, just so we can play
Okay,
along easier at home.
yeah, take me up my pain.
This is actually the Grand Hall from Skull the Hero Slayer,
Oh,
a
it's
game
from
you played very
Skull.
recently.
You're right. You're right. Oh, I played a lot of Skull too. I went through a phase where I played a lot, but you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
shit, you're right. It's Skull.
All right.
It's Skull.
It's okay. You got a lot of time to redeem yourself, and I have a
Okay.
feeling that this next song, number 2, will be one that you can pick out pretty
Okay.
fast. I more so wanted to play it for our listeners because it just rocks.
Okay.
Without any further ado, song number 2.
Oh. This is like very Mega Man-y, right?
No hints.
It's Mega Man, but it's also maybe Undertale.
Well,
Okay, it's some really good chip tunes. I
it
feel
is.
like I know nothing anymore. My confidence from the start has been
Oh man,
absolutely rocked.
I will tell you, this is probably the song I'm most confident in you getting right.
Wow.
Or
That's
we'll see.
tough. Okay, I'm gonna say it's not Mega Man then, because it's been a long time since I played some Mega Man. It could be Undertale. It's very chiptune-y. It's not one of the big songs. It's obviously not a Megalovania. It's not.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't
not.
pick any like main songs from any of these games.
Yeah,
It would just be too
it's
easy.
it's not like yeah. It's not Undertale. Undertale. It's not Megalovania. It's not Home. I don't. I think it is Undertale though.
Okay.
Um, I know it's gonna be wrong. I feel so
And
embarrassed myself. But where does it play? I kind of sounds like the hot area. Um, could be. I don't think it's one of the bosses. I think it's
30 seconds.
not the hot area. It's not the coal area. It's not Sans or Papyrus's themes.
10,
It's that. It's not the
9,
dummy you fight.
8,
It's like
7.
the quiz section. Is it
The
the quiz
quiz
section?
section? All right.
That's totally
You're out
wrong.
of time. That's final answer.
Okay.
You are unfortunately incorrect.
No.
This is a song called Pressing Pursuit or Cornered from Phoenix Wright when
Oh
you
my god,
have the
of
evidence
course.
and you're
Of
about to
course
lock
it's
up the guy.
Phoenix Wright. Yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. It's Phoenix Wright, of
So,
course.
man, it's so easy when you know what it is, though, right? It's
It's
tough when you're
so
on the
easy
spot.
when you know what it is. Yeah, without context. If I
Yeah,
had okay. I'm
tough
gonna
on the
get this
spot.
third one.
Okay, all right. Let's listen to the third
Okay.
song right now.
Drum beats going on. Okay, we got a guitar twang coming in. The guitar makes me think either Red Dead or Last of Us,
Hmm.
because those definitely both have guitar motifs. So I'm thinking Red Dead more than The
Okay.
Last of Us. It's just a little bit more hopeful than it's got a little bit more like power and like kind of
Yeah,
like we're rising up to do something more so than The Last of Us is a little bit more understated, I think. So
it's good analysis.
I'm gonna say it's a Red Dead
Okay.
song, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say it's when you go into the bar with Lenny because that's one of my favorite sequences, and I have no idea otherwise.
Okay. I will say that you're completely wrong. This is actually the prison rooftop from Dead Cells.
Oh my god.
And
Okay.
I think this was like the hardest one that I came up with.
Okay.
I mean, I've not played a lot of Dead Cells. This might be like some late game area that you barely ever go to. I really don't know, but I just thought it was
Okay.
unique. So you know why not?
That's a deep cut, but it is a good song. These have all been really, really good songs so far.
Yeah, they have. And now speaking of this one, I will give you a hint for this one because it might be a memory bank question. So
Okay.
for number 4, put on your nostalgia glasses, okay?
Okay.
And let's
Okay,
listen
good
to
to
it
know.
right now.
Oh, this is White Jungle from Sonic Adventure 2. I'm gonna listen to the rest of it, but I think that might be it. Oh, I don't know about this part actually. I might.
Video listeners just sitting here now watching us like listen to music. They no facial expression.
I'm like, so. Oh, once that like synthy
The
piano
synth really
kind
changes
of
it,
came
yeah.
in, that changed it a lot. The first part is so similar to like it really had White Jungle vibes to me. Da, da, da. It's good, whatever it is. It feels like a Nintendo game.
Hmm.
I guess nostalgia kind of works with that too. We played a lot of Nintendo, but um I'm gonna probably kick myself on this, but in the interest of saving time, I will go with my original guess
Which was
that it
White
is,
Jungle.
which is White Jungle from Adventure
Uh,
2. I
unfortunate,
know, I
unfortunate,
know.
Kate. This is maybe this was a bit unfair, but this is from Spyro Year of the Dragon, and
Oh my
it is the
god.
Sunrise Spring. It's like the main hub area that you start out the game in.
That's
And
funny. I
so
never, ever have gotten that. Spyro the Dragon is one of those games I remember playing as a kid,
yeah,
but like in basically zero detail. And
yeah.
even when I bought the Spyro remix, I never actually made it to Year of the Dragon. So
Yeah, I just knew this was a game we had played, and it was like when you start the game, this is a hub area. We would have spent a lot of time in here, so like
mhm.
I instantly was like, oh, I remember like kind of the area of this, so I thought maybe you'd have the same reaction. But yeah, pretty tough, pretty tough.
I got a 3-year debuff on guessing on that one, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, all I can say is good luck with this
okay,
one. Hopes are high, but my hopes were high
right.
for number 2, so we'll see what happens. And without further ado, everyone, song 5.
Oh, this is Sonic. I was one too early. This is Sonic Adventure 2 for sure. This is White Harbor.
Mm.
I think. Oh, this could be a Tails level actually. This is a Tails level for sure. Is it White Harbor?
Metal Harbor, Kate. Metal Harbor.
Metal Harbor. Metal Harbor. Right. No, it's White Jungle, Metal Harbor. This is a Tails level. This is the Tails level that's on the bay, like by the water. I
Mm-hmm.
want to say. But I'm 100% confident that this
100%
is
confident when I
Sonic
say
Adventure 2.
Sonic
Yeah,
Adventure 2.
100% Sonic. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, Tails level, Sonic Adventure 2, maybe the Harbury one.
gotcha. Okay, well, you earn 1 point. It is Sonic
Thank
Adventure
God.
2. You have a score
Yes.
of 1. Unfortunately, it's not a harbor level. This is Prison Lane
Mm.
when
Oh,
Tails is
it's
escaping
Prison
from
Lane.
that. I
Okay.
don't even know what. It's like a prison, obviously. There's like all the
Yeah.
switches and you're going through. It's really gray. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Sonic Adventure
Oh,
2 Battle,
Sonic
Prison
Adventure 2.
Lane.
I've been
So
listening to the soundtrack, but I haven't listened to that. I've been listening to like Aquatic Mine,
yeah,
Pumpkin Hill, and like,
my
of
name is
course, Live and
Knuckles.
Learn.
Here on
My name is
Pumpkin
Knuckles
Hill.
from Pumpkin Hill.
Great
Yeah,
song, great song.
great
Well,
song.
that's a 1 out of 10. And the good
That's
thing
not
about
good.
1 out of 10, no, but the good thing is we can put a positive spin on it, is that this is the first time of playing good listening on the show. And so the scores can only get better from here next time we play good
Right.
listening. So
Right,
maybe,
that's true. I am just I feel like I don't hate myself for getting them wrong. I feel tragic about the Phoenix Wright question.
yeah,
I
I
feel like
was
that is
shocked.
such a distinct song, and I knew it's so like familiar. It was like running in it felt like running into someone and like being like, "Oh, hey, you," and not knowing who they were. And then they're like, "Oh, we dated for 7 years. How do you not remember me?" Like, oh shit, I really should have known that.
I couldn't describe that better myself. That's perfect. Um, well, look forward to playing that next time. Hopefully, maybe we can switch roles and you can host next time
Yeah.
because I would love to try my hat at
And
that and see
and
if I
you'll
can
see
do better.
it's not so easy as it turns out.
No, no, it's not. You can let us know how you did, though, like I said at the top of the segment, by writing into circlesandsquarespod@gmail.com, or you can let us know on Twitter at C&S Pod, where you can get in touch with us there as well. And speaking of getting in touch with us, we'll close out the show just by answering a listener mail question before we go for the day. And Kate, why don't you read the question for today?
Yeah, so this is kind of a fun one. Matias asks us, so what is a game you felt you played wrong? And I'll just go first because I had the perfect experience with this as of literally today and yesterday
Okay.
when I found out that I don't know how to play Fury because I just play it arbitrarily wrong and hard with half of the controls at my disposal.
What a
But it
fitting question to answer on the show today.
yeah, it actually ties in nicely though, because I would say like my original answer when I thought about this the other day was I intentionally don't use certain mechanics in games because I just prefer some mechanics. So I was originally thinking of Sekiro and
Mm,
how like the weapon arts are such, and Dark Souls 3 has this too actually, where they give you those like really cool weapon arts that are like those big attacks that you get off of like skill trees, and they're like supposed to be big tactics you kind of build into. And I literally never used a single one the whole time I
that's
played.
funny. Yeah.
And also, like, with the ninja tools and stuff as well, like, I just liked the base combat so much that I didn't want to use any of the flashy things because I just wanted to play, like, with your bread and butter, just sword.
Just keep it
And
basic. Yeah.
so exactly. So I was thinking, like, well, I played Sekiro that way, which is kind of weird. And then that also sort of works with Fury. Like, I intentionally I didn't use, like, the good moves because I just used my basic attacks. And so if I hadn't have fucked up and not known the controls, I might have done that anyway, just because I'm a weird masochist and I want to make it harder for myself, apparently. So,
Hey, you know what you like.
um,
That's fine.
exactly. So I play games wrong in that way.
Gotcha. Good answer. I have two answers myself. The first one is for some reason, and this is a problem that plagues probably everyone. I know you're in the same boat. When I'm playing RPGs, I just don't use my items, and I don't know why.
Oh my
Like
god,
I never
yeah.
use my
Well,
potions. Never use
what
like
if
those.
you need them later? What if
Yeah,
there's like 7 secret final bosses after the final boss and you used your potions on the final boss like an idiot?
I know it's such a painful problem. Like, and I understand like
Mhm.
sometimes it's good to save like the one-off items. Like I think back to like stuff like Wacka's Bump in Paper Mario, where you only get
Yeah.
like a finite amount of those, or like in Persona, there's like finite amounts of like the good MP restoring items, which is
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
important to have for certain bosses. But in general, it's like just use your damn potions, man. Like use your attack items. Just there's no point having them sitting in your inventory and having
Mhm.
like 200 of them at the end of the game. Like I always have
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
And the other one for me that's like kind of specific is like and I think I've remedied this a bit now, but I used to play, like, if there was a game that would come out, like, back in the 2000s when I was playing more Call of Duty or like other games with campaigns like Killzone or whatever, I would always make a deal with myself, like, I'm going to play through the campaign before I play the multiplayer. And it was like, it's such a weird way to play it, right? Because if a game comes out and it's brand new, like, everyone's going to be learning the multiplayer, jumping into that. And then by the time I go through the campaign for a week and then multiplayer next week, it's like I'm already trying to learn the maps and everyone's killing me from like other areas because they played before. And it's just like a weird way to do that. But I think with Halo Infinite, I did at least the opposite there. I played the multiplayer first. So
Right.
maybe I've
It
kind of
broke you
swapped
out of
that
that
around.
cycle.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
a
I
weird thing I have. I don't know why I do
yeah,
that.
we definitely like impose weird restrictions on ourselves. Like there's even been times where like I've been interested in a franchise, but it's like, well, I can't jump in game 2. I have to play game 1 first. But like,
Hmm.
oh, game 1 isn't fun, so I'm just not going to play any of them. And it's like, why? Just play the one you're interested in. Like The Witcher, that's The Witcher 3 for me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
well, fuck, if I haven't played the other Witchers, so I can't play The Witcher 3. And then I'm just never playing The Witcher 3 because it's like, oh, that's too much of a commitment to go back and play the other two.
yeah. I
So
see.
I'll just
I don't
never
have
do
that
it.
problem. At least I'm more than comfortable looking up like videos or a summary of a certain game and then moving to the next
No.
one. Like I'm okay with that most of the time. But yeah, interesting question. It made me think a little bit because I was going through
Yeah.
like a list of games that I played and I'm like, I don't know if I've played any of these wrong. Like, what is playing a game wrong?
Yeah,
But I
it's
think we
hard to
can agree,
define
like
that.
not using your potions in an RPG, which lets you use items. Like, I think that's wrong. Like, you're meant to use those.
Yeah,
So
it's limiting yourself for no actual gain or reason because you have some like,
mhm.
anxiety about
Yeah, it's
maybe
like I
that's a
would
bad
rather run
idea.
back to the inn to sleep again instead of going halfway through the dungeon and
Yeah,
using my
it's like
potions. Like,
I remember doing that in Pokemon, like, as a
yeah,
kid
yeah,
and, like, never using potions because it'd be like, "Oh, no, I took a little bit of damage. I have, like, 40 potions in my inventory. Like, I guess
yeah.
I'll fucking run
Run
back
all
to
the way
town
back,
and, like,
run through
then run
Viridian
back
City
down
all the
the
way
route
back.
for"
Like,
yeah,
oh my god,
exactly, and it's like, just just why did I do that?
what a nightmare! What a nightmare! Yeah. Well, thanks for the question, Matias. Always a pleasure to answer these listener mail questions. And I think that's going to close us out for the show today, Kate. So, again, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate the support on the show as always. And we'll be back again next Monday to talk about some PlayStation news on the Circles and Squares news report. So, we'll see you all next week.